Comrades and brothers and sisters, this is the Stormy Poet, and welcome to this edition of the Poethnic Justice Podcast.
Then first you have to pay off the Native Americans, whose land we took, and whose homes we took, and whose people we killed in the millions.
No, they got paid. They got paid.
We'll have to.
They have land.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, really?
They have land. They have reservations, and they also have economic.
Oh, yeah. And would you like to talk to me about reservations and what a wonderful payment that is? All the black people in this country be willing to take a reservation.
That's what the Nation of Islam was asking for.
Well, is that a smart thing to do? I don't think it was.
It depends on who's driving that car. I've been to a reservation. I've been to a reration in Montana.
Did you think it was a really comfortable place to be?
The way that they were living, no, I wouldn't live like that.
Oh well,
but the whole it can't get any worse for black people. So a black person is not going to say, I don't want to have a chance to create my own civilization and my own society. Everybody wants that chance. I'm not going to judge, but I'm not going to project onto black people in America. Well, if this is what happened to the natives, you don't want that. And I'm damn sure not going to say, well, we need to pay the natives. The natives already got paid. They already made their deals. They already signed treaties. They've already done what they did. And if they squander their opportunity, that's on that group. Now it's time for this group to get its opportunity and to get its reparations.
This clip of Jane Elliott speaking out against reparations for black people was from 3 years ago on the Socks and Sandals podcast. And I'm extremely glad this brother pinned her down on the topic, because Jane Elliott just exhibited certain tendencies black people tend to overlook or flat out ignore when it comes to determining the company we keep or who is or isn't an ally. Black people absolutely must get this through their heads and accept the fact that there are indeed white people out there who have absolutely no problem whatsoever calling out systematic racism and white supremacy, but who have absolutely no genuine interest in stopping it. That's a hard pill for a lot of black people to swallow, because unfortunately there's a significant number of low self-esteem Negroes who just can't bring themselves to accept that their white liberal buddies or spouses have no genuine desire or interest in making a wholesale daily effort to combat systemic anti-black racism. Their need to believe that there are just some white people out there who are, quote, down for the cause, involved in their lives, is far more important than them than the need to make honest and concrete assessments about the character of the people they interact with on a daily basis. And doing so is basically just a form of begging for white acceptance. The fact is, white people have absolutely nothing to lose for speaking out against racism. Heck, some of them have even made lucrative careers out of it. I mentioned in one of my other podcasts that you have folks out here like Robin DiAngelo, Tim Wise, Jane Elliott, and Cyber Rowe who actually profit from speaking on how bad anti-black racism is. Now, I know Cyber Rowe is East Indian, but she doesn't advocate for reparations in her book, nor did she run on a reparations platform back in 2018 when she ran for Colorado's 1st Congressional District. What she does do is invite white women, exclusively, to come sit at a dinner table to, quote, confront their own biases and prejudices. And she charges them $2,500 each an event. It's an event she's dubbed Race to Dinner. Talk about profiting off black oppression. Now that just goes to show there are white people out there that are even willing to pay big bucks to go confess their own racist tendencies, aka speak out against racism, just as long as there's not going to be any talk about retroactively taking steps to give up the socio-economic benefits and free goodies that white privilege affords them on a daily basis. Now, Sabra keeps the company of a black woman to make it look like she's not profiting off the guilty racist consciences of well-to-do white women, but she's no different than a Tim Wise. She understands the hustle. You see, white people will gleefully attend these diversity and inclusion seminars, especially if their job's paying for it, or events like Race to Dinner to have, quote, tough conversations about their inherent biases because it eases their consciences. It allows them to trick themselves into believing they've actually done something constructive. They confess and share stories about the time they clutched their purse extra tight when they got in the elevator with a black guy, or about that time they wore blackface to a Halloween party back in college. They listen to some host or panel lecture to them about how doing stuff like that is insensitive or microaggressive, not acts of anti-black racism though. And they say we're all just a little bit prejudiced in some way when it comes to race or gender, blah blah blah. And so white people get to feel a little bit guilty for an hour or two, and by feeling guilty they can convince themselves that they've, quote, done their part. No, that's not, quote, fighting the good fight. You don't get points for merely owning up to your racism. Abolishing this demonic system is going to require that the white collective gives up their power, and the power of white supremacy lies within its economy. It's not about convincing the average everyday white person to not cross the street when they see a black person coming. Quite frankly, I'm not concerned with a white person having racial biases against me. My only concern is, are my people and I powerful enough to protect ourselves should the people with those biases decide to exercise their racism socially and politically? I'm not interested in being liked. I'm interested in being respected, and you can't be respected if you can't protect yourself or those you care about. It's as TBA taught us. They don't like you because you're black, but they're able to victimize you because you're poor. White supremacy's power lies within its economy. This is the whole reason why the racial wealth chasm exists, and I say chasm because it's not simply a wealth gap. The very reason white supremacy was created was for the purpose of not being required to have to fairly compete. And the average white person understands this inherently, which is why they have such a visceral reaction if you bring up reparations in the form of direct cash payments. Even white people that are supposedly against white supremacy, like Jane Elliott. There was no huge backlash when the Japanese got reparations for being put in internment camps during World War II. No one ever questions if the Jews in Germany should be getting reparations for the Holocaust. As the brother in the clip earlier mentioned, the Native Americans get cash and land reparations. There are no pollsters inquiring the general public on whether or not Native Americans deserve reparations. Like how they do with us. There are no white media outlets constantly broadcasting to the world that the majority of white Americans don't agree with giving reparations to the Native Americans, as if people's opinion matter when it comes to providing a semblance of justice for committing the greatest crime in human history. When it was time to give money to Ukraine, the illegal immigrants, Afghanistan, and now Israel, there wasn't anyone on the left nor the right saying there's no way the country could afford that, or they'll just probably blow all the money on stuff they don't need, like rims and stuff like that anyway. They were too busy writing checks in the form of billions. When it comes to things like mass incarceration, the racial wealth chasm, educational disparities, gentrification, police brutality, and other wicked manifestations of white supremacy, reparations rectifies all, ALL, of those issues completely. Mass incarceration is fueled by black people having their communities deliberately deprived of resources. Any place that is economically deprived is going to have high crime rates. And these areas are always over-policed as well, as we demonstrated in Tulsa, Oklahoma. If you put us literally in the middle of the wilderness and let us build without sabotage, we'll literally erect an empire from the mud. Reparations would mean we'd have resources to put right back into the community, which would lower crime. And we'd actually have resources to police ourselves without having to rely on the thugs in blue. Reparations would mean having actual wealth to pass down to our heirs, so they wouldn't have to start from zero. Black people would actually have seed capital to start businesses comparable to white ones, and they would have the luxury of screwing up a few times until they can get it right, instead of having to put all their eggs in one basket. White people actually have the privilege of screwing up a few times until they get their businesses right. Shout out to Elon Musk. In terms of education, reparations would mean we would have money to build and fund our own institutions, ones that are exclusively in our best interest. The way Yale, Princeton, and Harvard are for white men. I could go on, but you get the point. As MLK said in the interview he had back in 1969 with NBC, integration didn't require that America gave up anything, and it actually helped the white economy that black people weren't barred from being their consumers anymore. He said fixing the issue of racism was going to cost billions of dollars, and that it was pure evil to tell a group of bootless people to pull themselves up by the bootstraps. During Reconstruction, after 200 years of being owned, black people were given nothing to start off with, and were literally left in the wilderness to die. And it is this deliberate failure to give restitution that has detrimentally affected every single black person who descended from the concentration camps of the American South. Even if you manage to do well for yourself while living under this satanic system, you're still owed restitution. And that bill America owes comes with compound interest, and it needs to be adjusted for inflation. I'm not saying white people shouldn't speak out against racism. We definitely need more of them to call out the white supremacy in their own circles. But if you're speaking out against it in a manner that does nothing to address drastically altering the socio-economic landscape in favor of those who descend from American slavery, or if you're turning a profit off of it, that in and of itself is practicing white supremacy. Not being in favor of cash reparations is racist. Full stop. The white collective is hyper alert and vigilant about their economic standing in relation to black people. The efficacy of white privilege is measured exclusively by how badly black people are doing. So if you really want a litmus check to see where a white person's heart is at when it comes to race, or other non-white people for that matter, Just start talking about what this country owes black people financially. Ask them if they think black people deserve cash reparations and just listen to what they have to say. Their answer, no matter the race, will let you know whether or not they are genuinely on the side of black people. If it's anything other than yes, I agree that black people should get cash reparations for slavery and I only support politicians in favor of that, then they've let you know where they stand when it comes to the well-being of you and the people who look like you. In closing, I have a theory I'd like to leave you with. It's like how Neely Fuller said, if you really want to know what a black person thinks, get a white person to ask them the question. TBA said, if you really want to know what a white woman thinks, get a white man to ask them the question. Now the phrase I'll coin myself and end with is, if you really want to know what a white person thinks, just bring up returning the economy they stole being restored back to us. It is then that the truth about how they really feel about black people will come out. But don't just take my word for it. One love and one justice. The Stormy Poet.